On a freezing night in November 1910, a private railway car sat waiting in the dark at a New Jersey station. One by one, some of the most powerful men in America slipped aboard, arriving separately so no one would see them together. They were ordered to use only their first names. No titles, no last names. Not even the staff could know who they really were. As the train pulled south into the night, a secret was leaving with it, one that would quietly reshape the money of an entire nation. Welcome back to Dollar Sense AZ. Last time, we saw how a single family learned that controlling money means controlling power. Today, that same idea crosses an ocean to America. By the early 1900s, America was the richest, fastest-growing country on Earth. Skyscrapers were rising, fortunes were being made. But underneath the boom lay a dangerous flaw, one that kept bringing the whole system crashing down without warning. This is the story of how a handful of men tried to fix that flaw in total secrecy on a private island and quietly built the most powerful financial institution in America. To understand why they went to such lengths, we have to go back a few years to the day the American financial system nearly died. America had banks in every town, but nothing above them. No single institution to steady the system when things went wrong. Every bank stood alone. Here was the problem. A bank never keeps all your money in its vault. It lends most of it out, so it only holds a fraction of what it owes. That works perfectly, as long as people trust the bank and don't all ask for their money at once. But trust is fragile. All it takes is one rumor, one whisper that a bank is in trouble, and fear does the rest. Word spreads, and suddenly everyone rushes to pull their money out at the same time. It's called a bank run. And because the bank only kept a fraction on hand, the cash ran out fast, the doors would close, and the people who came too late lost everything. And panic never stops at one bank. Frightened people ran to pull money from healthy banks too, until good banks and bad banks were failing together. This happened again and again. Every few years, the economy would seize up, businesses collapsed, and families were ruined. It was a recurring nightmare. In other countries, a central bank could step in and supply emergency cash to stop the fear. America had no such thing. There was no one to catch the falling system. And then, in the autumn of 1907, the nightmare returned, bigger and more dangerous than ever before. It began with a reckless gamble. A few speculators tried to corner the stock of a copper company and failed spectacularly, losing a fortune overnight. The problem was, the men behind that gamble were tied to banks and trust companies, and when they fell, people feared those banks would fall too. The fear landed on one of New York's largest trust companies. Depositors swarmed its doors, demanding their cash. In hours, it was drained dry and forced to shut. Terror spread down Wall Street. Lines formed outside every bank. The whole financial capital of America was teetering on the edge of collapse. With no central bank to save the country, the burden fell on one man, the most powerful private financier in America. He summoned the leading bankers of New York to his private library and, night after night, pressed them to pool their money to rescue the failing institutions. The story goes that he kept them talking through the night and would not let them leave until they agreed on a plan to stop the panic. Together, they poured emergency money into the weakest banks, cash to pay the frightened depositors and calm the crowds. Slowly, it worked. Seeing cash flowing again, people stopped panicking. The lines shrank, the runs eased, the system held just barely. America had been pulled back from disaster, but not by a system or a law or a government. It had been saved by one aging man and his personal power. And that raised a frightening question. What would happen the next time panic struck when that one man was no longer there to stop it? For the first time, the whole country agreed on something. America could not keep gambling its future on the goodwill of a single banker. Something had to change. So the government acted. It created a commission to study the problem and find a permanent solution, and put a powerful senator in charge. His name was Nelson Aldrich, one of the most influential men in the Senate, and no friend of reckless banks. If anyone could design a fix, it was him. To learn how a modern money system should work, he sailed to Europe, where great central banks had steadied their nations for generations. In London, Berlin, and Paris, he studied how their central banks could calm a panic, quietly supplying money the moment fear appeared. He came home convinced. America needed its own institution, a guardian that could supply emergency money and stop panics before they spread. But he faced an enormous obstacle. Ordinary Americans deeply distrusted Wall Street. They feared a powerful new bank would simply hand more control to the very financiers they blamed for the panics. It created an impossible problem. The men who understood banking best were the bankers themselves. But any plan seen as written by Wall Street would be attacked and rejected instantly. So the senator made a fateful decision. If the experts couldn't be seen working together in public, then they would do it in complete secret. He quietly invited a tiny handful of the sharpest financial minds in the country, just a few men who together understood how money truly worked. The rules were strict. Tell no one. Travel separately. And above all, never let it be known that these men had ever been in the same room. To explain their disappearance, they invented a harmless cover story. They were simply a group of wealthy friends, going on a duck hunting trip. Some of them even carried borrowed shotguns they barely knew how to use. Anything to look the part of casual sportsmen. One by one, from different homes in different directions, they made their way toward a single quiet railway station in New Jersey. There, on a private siding, the same luxurious railway car we saw at the very beginning sat waiting in the dark. As they boarded, they greeted each other by first names only, a small ritual to protect the enormous secret they now shared. And with that, the train rolled south, carrying its passengers and their secret 1,000 miles toward a lonely island off the coast of Georgia. Their destination was Jekyll Island, a remote, private retreat surrounded by misty marshes and sea, far from prying eyes and city newspapers. The final stretch could only be crossed by boat. They slipped across the water at dawn, stepping onto the island unseen. The exclusive club had been closed and emptied just for them. For the days ahead, this grand house would belong to them alone. Even the servants had been carefully chosen and kept in the dark. No one on the island would ever learn the guests' full names or why they had come. By the fire, they shed their disguises, opened their cases of documents, and turned to the real reason they had come. Their goal was staggering. In just a few days, in total secrecy, they would try to design a new money system for the entire United States. The senator led the group, bringing the political instincts to know what the country might accept. But the true mind behind the design was a soft-spoken, European-trained banker, a man who had spent his life studying how great central banks were built. Around him sat the heads of the nation's greatest banks, men who between them touched a huge share of all the money in America. First, they defined the problem exactly. When panic strikes, the system runs out of cash, so they needed a source of emergency money that could never run dry. The idea was a central reserve, a great shared pool of money that every bank could draw on in an emergency, so no healthy bank would ever collapse from fear alone. But they knew a single giant bank at the center would terrify the public. It would look exactly like the Wall Street monster people feared most. So they devised a clever solution. Instead of one central bank, they would split it into a network of regional banks spread across the country. To the public, it would look decentralized and safe. Many regional banks, not one. But behind the scenes, they would be coordinated to act as a single system. They were careful even with words. They would avoid the phrase central bank entirely and never let the plan sound like it came from Wall Street. They argued long into the night over the hardest question of all. How much control should belong to the government, and how much to the bankers themselves? Day after day they worked, from early morning until long past midnight, filling page after page with the blueprint of a new financial order. Meals were brought in and cleared away almost untouched. Coffee went cold beside stacks of notes. The outside world simply ceased to exist. Slowly, out of the arguments and revisions, a complete design emerged, detailed, workable, and carefully built to survive public suspicion. They knew what they had created, a design that could reshape the flow of money for 100 million people, written by a handful of men almost no one knew were here. Before they left, they were careful to leave no trace, no evidence that these particular men had ever gathered in this place. And just as they had come, they slipped away, separately, quietly, back into their ordinary powerful lives as if nothing had happened. But the document they carried did not disappear. It traveled north with them, a finished plan, waiting for the right moment to enter the world. For now, their work would stay hidden, but the ideas born on that island were about to begin a long journey into the halls of power. Months later, the senator unveiled the plan to the nation as his own, never mentioning the island or the bankers who had truly written it. On paper, it looked reasonable, a network of regional reserve banks that could supply emergency money and prevent another panic. Some praised it as exactly the fix America needed, but others were immediately suspicious of the plan and of the powerful man presenting it. The plan carried the senator's name, and to a public that distrusted Wall Street, that name made it look like a rich man's scheme. And quietly, rumors began to spread. Whispers that the plan hadn't really been written in Washington at all, but somewhere hidden by bankers no one could name. Weighed down by suspicion, the plan stalled. It could not win enough support to pass. For a while, it seemed the island's secret work had been for nothing. Then, the political winds shifted. A new president was elected, one who had campaigned against the power of the great financiers. His allies took the core idea, the network of reserve banks, but rebuilt it to answer the public's deepest fear. They would put the government firmly in charge at the top. A central board, appointed by the president and answerable to the nation, would oversee the whole system, so it could never simply serve the bankers alone. The new plan set off one of the fiercest debates in the country's history, fought line by line in Congress over who should truly control the money. Some feared it gave bankers too much power. Others feared it gave government too much. Everyone sensed how much was at stake. Slowly, through argument and compromise, the pieces came together, a careful balance between private banks and public control. Just before the winter holidays of 1913, the long battle finally reached its end. The votes were cast. It passed. After years of panics, secrecy, and struggle, America would finally have a guardian for its money. The president signed it into law, creating a system of regional reserve banks overseen by a public board, the new central pillar of American finance. And so, from a reckless gamble, a nighttime train, and a secret island, a brand new institution was born. Now, when panic threatened, there would be a reservoir of emergency money ready, a guardian standing over the whole system at last. And in the years that followed, the sudden system-wide bank runs that had terrorized America for generations slowly began to fade. But the new system carried a profound tension inside it. To protect the nation's money, enormous power over that money had been placed in very few hands, and ever since, people have seen it two ways. To some, it was a wise safeguard that finally brought stability. To others, it was a quiet transfer of power. The moment control of the nation's money moved a step further from the public's reach. That debate, stability versus control, safety versus power, has never truly been settled. It continues to this day. But one thing is beyond dispute. The quiet institution shaped on that lonely island grew into one of the most powerful forces in the modern world, and its descendants still shape the value of the money in your pocket. the interest on your loans, and the health of the whole economy every single day. So what should you take from all of this? A few simple truths that still matter enormously today. First, the rules of money are not laws of nature. They are designed by people in rooms most of us never see. Money is a human invention, and it can be rebuilt. Second, how something is named and framed can matter as much as what it actually is. The same plan can be feared or accepted depending only on the words wrapped around it. And third, whenever power over money is gathered into a few hands, it buys stability, but it always carries a cost. That trade-off is worth watching in every generation. This isn't distant history. The system born from that secret meeting still decides how much your money is worth and whether the economy booms or breaks. You don't need to fear it, but you should understand it, because the more you see how money really works, the harder you are to fool. From a banking family in old Europe to a secret island off the coast of Georgia, the pattern is the same. Whoever shapes the money shapes the world. And the most important decisions about that money have often been made not in public squares, but quietly, behind closed doors, by very few people. The new Guardian had been built to stop panics forever, but within a single generation, it would face a test greater than anything its creators had ever imagined. Next time on Dollar Sense AZ, the roaring boom that seemed like it would never end, the day the markets fell off a cliff, and the Guardian that was supposed to save everyone, and didn't. If you want to understand the forces that quietly shape your money, subscribe to Dollar Sense AZ and follow the series from the beginning. Thanks for watching. Stay curious and stay sharp with your money. I'll see you on the next one.